Does that work for
Well,
you?
we're already doing the podcast.
Well, I mean, like I'm curious, and I think a
Okay,
lot of other
okay,
people might be as well. And so I thought maybe if we just do a recording, you
okay.
can decide what you want to do with it later. We'll make it available, but I'm really curious, and who knows, maybe you want to make this more broadly
Yeah,
available. So let's do it.
okay. Yeah,
So,
okay.
sorry, if I go
So,
back to
like,
the
like
motivations
I
behind the
was
book.
saying that, yes. So first of all, I said my daughter is the muse
Mhm.
for the book. My daughter, she's 9. And,
Mhm.
little secret I was telling you about is that the initial title for the book was A Letter to My Daughter. And I think that gives it away. When I say letter to my daughter, that really gives it away. But I think it all started, like I told you, I was writing. I was writing for magazine, newspaper articles, writing on LinkedIn, and I would get a lot of feedback when people read these articles. They say, oh, you could put this into a book. You have so much to share. But more importantly, my coach used to tell me that a lot. She's like, you have so much experience, especially valuable experience you could share with the younger generation. But it became really more important for me when it came to my daughter, because there was a time I just wanted to pass on so much to my daughter. I would stare at her and think, I mentor a lot of young women. How can I pass this information to my daughter? And I thought, oh, the best way will be to document it. And that's how I started writing the book. So she was the muse all throughout, even when I get stuck in the creative process, I would just ask myself, what are you trying to say to Sarah? So Sarah is her name. What are you really trying to say to her? What do you want to tell her? How do you want her to understand it? And that actually, it required me to be transparent, to be vulnerable, because I felt like I was sharing with my daughter and I really wanted her to see my perspective. So that's how I started writing the book. So I would write and write and write and write. Of course, I got some help. I joined the writers club. People that are like me, similar-minded people that were also writing, and we would, catch up every 2 weeks, share ideas, read each other's articles, and I started putting the work together. But I was, one of the things that made me happy putting this work together is seeing the feedback I get today. When a young lady or a young guy reads the book and tells me, thank you so much. You don't know, this means a lot to me. I got this from this book. And those for me are the priceless gems. For me, in terms of the work I've done, those are the priceless gems. Because I always told myself, this is a letter to the young Jane, like a letter to your younger self. My daughter being the metaphor for the younger self, but that's what I would have told my younger self 20 years ago. And that's what I put in the
That's the
book.
best. I love that because one of the things that we say even when we're video recording, like if I'm recording a video for
Yeah,
YouTube, is that don't think about talking to some generic computer. Think about
yeah,
talking to a younger version of yourself. You know what you were like when you were younger.
yeah.
You know all the anxieties, all of the
All the
challenges that you had.
fears, insecurities, yeah.
So you have more empathy, like you care, about people a lot more,
Yeah.
and you understand the kind of struggles that they have, and that makes it much more relatable. Wonderful, wonderful.
Yes, it
Now,
makes it much more relatable, and and I think it makes it more humane, I might say.
you know, so you describe this as like the title says, like be fearless, give yourself permission to be you. What do you mean
Yeah.
by give yourself permission to be you? So giving yourself permission to be yourself, like what kind of permission do you need? Do we sometimes not give ourselves permission? What does that mean?
I think I say that because sometimes we're trying to be somebody else, and it's okay, like if you know better, you'll do better. Uh, we're trying to be somebody else. We're trying to follow a mold we've been told to follow. We're trying to be the impression we have been given. It could be by loved ones, and nothing wrong with that, by mentors, people we look up to. But I felt what was more important is to be you. You have something, you have a purpose on earth. There's something unique about it. There's something you should contribute to your community, your environment. You have to let yourself give that, be that. There's no other better version. That's the version the world needs. That's the
Mhm.
version the world would benefit from. Any other version will be struggling and working too hard to do something that is not theirs. So
Mhm.
that gives you a realization that the power is within. And I see that a lot in the book, that the power is within. Don't take those things for granted. Those dreams of yours, the visions of yours, those things are powerful. And don't shy away. The fact that they're not like somebody else's own, that's the only way the world can progress, is that people are thinking about new stuff and bringing themselves. We want you to come with yourself. So I'm just saying, just let yourself be that. Let yourself be that powerful, authentic self, so you can contribute to the world.
I like that. I like that a lot. We often say, like, I don't know how many, like, so I work with a lot of parents and school councils, and I don't know how many
Yeah.
parents I've spoken with that say, oh, I feel really guilty right now because my kids are in front of the electronics a lot. And I feel like I'm not being like the
The
ideal
perfect
mother
mom.
to them. And you had talked about being yourself, and my response is often like, no, like, you are being the best mom that you can possibly be right now in this completely unprecedented situation. And I'm sure that if I were in exactly your same shoes, I would react in exactly the same way. And so, yeah, there's some challenges, right? But you're doing the absolute best that you can. And
Best you
I think
can.
we need to give ourselves a little bit of a break. Like, you're a couple months into this thing, like, it's a
Be kind
skill.
to
Like,
yourself, like I would say. Yeah, be kind. You spend too much time worrying. And I did that as a young kid. I spent more time worrying than literally living. And
wow.
I share those experiences in the book, just picking up from what you were saying. I came from a very, less privileged background, like really like living in the slums. So even though you had the dreams, you had an ambition, it was difficult because the environment you existed in was literally the opposite. It was hopeless. You were seeing people die for barely, I would say, like for careless debt, things that could easily have been addressed if the finances were there. And you were seeing people just rattled with hopeless situation when it comes to education or health. So you kind of struggle with that every day. You're kind of sipped in that negativity, that it becomes a struggle to really want to see the world for what it is and have the hope that, oh, I can be this, I can do that. But if you keep sinking yourself in that anxiety, which is similar to what is happening, you can spend all the time worrying about COVID, listening to all the news, and just sit down there worrying about all the debts. Or you can decide to leave and find a way to make it true, but not just making it true, but make sure that it counts. These days count. So when you look back, you want to say to yourself, wow, those were interesting days, but this is this and this I did during that time, you know? So you've got to be kind to yourself. You've got to be kind to yourself. You're not perfect. I'm not saying you're perfect. You would have some days where, you feel like, oh, today's one of those days. But you have to acknowledge that and still move on.
I'm just fascinated about your background, having grown up
Yeah.
in such a challenging situation, because there's so many people who don't turn their lives around, who don't, like,
Yeah.
escape
Who don't
per
get,
se.
oh, don't get a
Like,
chance.
it sounds like there was a big transformation that was needed in order to go from, like, like, the context where it's very easy to be,
Yeah.
like, kind of in a, like, this is just the way the world is, I can't do anything about it, versus saying, no, I'm gonna change my world. So what was that turning point like for you?
So for me, like I tell people, a lot of it was in the mind. So the battle first has to be won at the mind level, the mindset level. So I'm coming from a mindset where you don't trust authorities. It's difficult to trust because you just feel they failed us. they're all living large, they put all these policies, it doesn't work. We're living in the slums, we don't have access to anything, nobody cares. We're not protected. Like the system has failed you, so you naturally wouldn't trust people. You think about yourself, scarcity mentality. What can you get from whatever? That's what you think. You don't think of giving. Giving is out of it because this is like survival mode. Then, I was just fortunate. I was one of those kids, I would say fortunate. So I was a smart kid, but I was fortunate as well. So there was a point in my life when it was time to go to what you would call high school. We call it secondary school. My parents really wanted me to get a good education, but they couldn't afford it. But there was a government-run program that allowed, if kids could pass the exam, if they were smart enough, they would have access to good enough education that was being funded by the government. The intention was to create some kind of unity, because Nigeria is multi-ethnic, and the government was looking for a way to get all the ethnic groups together in some form, so people will be more accommodating of each other. So I'd taken these exams and, I'd even given up. I thought, oh, I didn't make it. I've moved on. I was going to one of the secondary schools in the slums, which was literally hopeless. You come to school, teachers don't show up, the class is rowdy, is gang members, like everybody just has their own agenda. It wasn't school, it was just a gathering of people that were just like clueless what to do next. So I just come home one day and my parents like, oh, see, I think you got in. So I got into this lovely school, and for the first 2-3 years, I was literally clueless why I was there. I was just grateful for the fact that I could get fed 3 times a day. 3 square meals for me were just, for me, it was a no-brainer. It was priceless because I was coming from an environment where, even just getting 1 meal a day was difficult. So for that first 3 years, it didn't matter. I was just okay. But then we talk about it in the book as well. There was some serendipitous moment that happened. One of those days where, you were bored, nothing to do. And I was just there with the other kids. And I decided, oh, let me just talk to them about what I was learning. I was reading. So I'll talk to them and they thought it was interesting and I'll do more. I'll come back the next day when we're on break. I'll do the same. And after a while, I noticed, wow, in the class, I could answer all the questions. And, I got an A and I'm like, is that how people get A? That aha moment, like, oh, okay. It's not bad. You can be successful. Let's look at this. We can aspire. And I started asking. I would ask the smart kids in the class, how do you get A's? Why do you get A's? What are the extra things you do? I just wanted to know. I found it fascinating. And it evolved to me desiring that, yes, I want to get very good results. I want to go to college. And that's why your environment is important. I tell people a lot that environment, what it created for me is the ability to dream, to aspire, to have a picture to look towards. I was coming from an environment, I didn't have those role models. I didn't have something to, go for. Even though I hear, oh, you could be a doctor, you could be an engineer, there are no role models to look at. But this was me in a school. I was living with people that they tell me about their parents being a doctor or this, and they tell you what it is their parents do, how they do it. So you get fascinated. You start to build those pictures and see the possibilities. And that's why I say that it starts here. The mindset starts here. Then I wanted it for myself. And I know one of the good things I noticed was the desire to be accountable for myself. Just because my mindset was shifted. Easy, simple things like it was a boarding school. So some middle class, rich kids, when their parents don't show up for what we call visiting days. So visiting days is when your loved ones come and check on you and see how you're doing. So for these kids, if their parents don't show up, do you know the way they pay the parents back? They don't study. They fail on purpose just to say like, oh, I'm upset with my mom. She didn't show up, And I just told myself I couldn't afford that. Like, I really want this A. I want to do something and have a better life than where I'm coming from. So even though my parents don't show up, that is not the reason I was still going to study, And I think for a young kid, a teenager, I thought that was amazing. In hindsight, I'm like, wow, you feel already comfortable already, feeling responsible, taking ownership. And that's because I realized that I've seen pictures of people that are doing amazing things, and I want to be like them. And that's why role models are important. So that's where the journey started for me. And once I started on that path, of course, there'll be deviations. I wouldn't say it was a smooth path. So once I was done with high school and I came home, back to my environment. So you're back to all that negativity and all that. I remember I would tell my loved ones and friends, oh, I wanted to study engineering. And they were like, nah, it's not for girls. It's too hard. You're going to spend too much time in school. Just do something easy and get out. You don't need to spend all that time, because they were also coming from a mindset of, find any easy way out, girl. This life is not worth it. They're coming from that mindset of, like we said, not trusting institutions or not trusting authority, or thinking that you have to find a short way out. You don't have to go through this way.
Can I pause you
And
right there? Like, this is incredible because first of all, I love your story. Like that is an incredible story, and what a transformation. And I agree. Like at the beginning, you gotta be like, you talk about the mindset and how that's kind of the starting point. Like you gotta be that person who I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna have a different life. You have to decide that first. Be, then you can do, and then you can act. You'll see the results, right? But
yeah.
like of all those things, if you've already decided, like at the beginning, that's not for me. I live in an environment of scarcity.
And you
You'll
wouldn't
never
see
get
the
out of there.
possibilities. You never get out of there. So the B part is so important. Even today, when I talk to younger girls or younger kids in the slums, that's one of the things I want to do for them. And that's one of the things I do. I show them role models because I want them to start at the mind to see so that they can be, because the battle will be at the mind. Like I tell them, I'm going to get into my car, I'm going to drive home. I won't be with you all through the week when your parents, uncle, aunties, everybody will try to talk you out of it. So you have to be, because that battle is going to be with you. You have to be determined to want it for yourself. Because like I said, the journey wouldn't be easy. Like I came back home. Now I'm telling myself I want to be an engineer because I see the possibilities. And everybody around me is telling me, no, no, that is like you're way shooting for the stars, girl. Don't go there, you'll be disappointed. And I kind of caved in, the young, I don't know, 17-year-old, 16-year-old girl. Because I remember I'd filled the forms for college, the admission forms, and I'd said engineering. Then like 2 weeks to the time to submit it, I went and changed it. Because I've been fed with so much information that was just negative and, the opposite of what I thought. Probably I caved in and I changed it. And I'm like, oh, I'll just look for something 4 years, easy, whatever, anything, give me. And I didn't have anything. So I was like asking people, okay, what do you think I should study there? Which one do you think is easy? I could just, good for women and all that. And they gave me something and I checked in the form and I filled it. I didn't even know what it is. Then I get to college, when the results are out and I go to the board, I was like number one in the department I chose. And I'm like, number one?
Wow.
So then I go to the engineering to check the list, and I looked at the list. If I had chosen engineering, I still would have been among the top 10. Like, I was literally so good. But, I wasn't that confident yet. Those insecurities were still there. And it was,
what you described, I can so relate to that, because I remember even in North America, we have these programs called Technovation, which is just encouraging girls to take even like a computer science or some type of science as a minor even. And the biggest barrier that we're finding is not the girls themselves. They love science.
They love
but
it.
it's the structure around them. It's like their mom who's telling them, don't take that. If you do it, like you're never going to talk to anybody.
The
You're going to be in a
dads, the
room.
uncles.
So they but they're not computer scientists. Like your mom, like the mom who is not one of these people is telling them, don't take this. It's bad for girls. And so that is heavily biasing their decisions in life based on stuff that they don't really know themselves. It's like, no, girls should take this one, right? Like this is where a lot of it comes from, and why we perpetuate the stereotype. So it's very, like, I can't imagine the amount of, like, you talk about all these resistance, right? Like people are telling you, nah, engineering, girls can't do that. Like, or
And these
in
are
the
people
same
you
way.
respected and people you loved. So you tend to take it seriously when they tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
And now I realize it's okay. It's their own perception or their own, their own perspective. Doesn't have to be yours. So I would go ahead, and that's, I think for me, that was one of the earliest lessons I learned as a young adult. The fact that I had to fight for my dreams, they are mine to protect. Nobody else is going to be protecting and fighting for it. So I
Mm,
would
so
go and
true.
spend the next 1 year in college fighting to change the course back to engineering. I spent 1 whole year doing that.
Wow.
And it was a priceless experience or lesson because it, it, it became a cornerstone of my journey so far. I have now realized that when I set those big, audacious goals, I don't need people's permission. Like, you have to understand that some of them probably are not in that mindset or or in that place to accept that these things can be a reality. But they're always happy for you when you achieve it because you also give them permission to dream. You also give them permission to set big, audacious goals for themselves. And they'll tell you, because now those uncles and all those lovers, like, I want my own kid to also study engineering. I want you to talk to them and tell them how you did it. But these were people that told me not to do it at that stage.
Yeah,
So that's the first
first
thing.
they
I
laugh at you.
have no regrets. It was a priceless experience.
You're right. Like first they laugh at you,
Yeah.
and then sometimes they get angry that you're still doing it despite that.
Yeah.
And then eventually they're like, "How can I learn more from you?
From you.
You're an inspiration." And it's
Sure.
like
Yeah.
everything's like that. Like everything, everybody has doubts until you have results.
Everybody.
And so like it's so hard to get out of that mindset. You definitely have to see yourself in a way that doesn't fit with what everybody's thinking of you is, and not defining yourself. Maybe
By
that's
your
what Fearless is all
situation, your
about.
environment. And I know it's difficult because now I say it, I make it sound easy. It is tough because some days you doubt yourself as well. Some days you wonder if is this going to be a reality? Are they right? Am I wrong? Some days you ask yourself, do I have the skill set? Do I have what it takes? Do I have access? Do I have the finance? You're asking so many questions and this creates anxiety.
It's true. It's true. Like
Yeah.
how many days do you have? You're just like I'm just thinking like the worst days, right? On like a worst
Yeah.
day, you're already thinking, what was I thinking? Kind of going into this thing. I
I've had
really
so many
shouldn't have
days
done that.
like that.
And it's very easy to say like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna give up. Like I'm gonna quit today because I can't do this. Um,
Yeah.
you know, you have to have something to point you or to at
Point
least
you.
keep you going during those toughest, like the toughest of the tough times.
And I would
What
like
was
to
your
share
thing?
one experience. Well, now
Please.
you're talking about the tough days, and I do this. I didn't write this in my book, though, but I would explain it. I do this because I also want those, the kids, the people that read this book to understand that I'm not saying that you wouldn't have those tough days. They will come. I don't think that you would. It's going to be a very smooth journey, especially when you're fighting the odds. It's not going to be a very smooth journey. It's really what you do about it. I recall, so engineering in the school I studied was a 5-year course. So you had to spend 5 years. Now this happened in my 4th year. So I was almost graduating. But I'd been trying to make ends meet all through the year. So there in my 4th year, one of those days that were really my low days, I think I probably hadn't eaten for like 3 days on the stretch, because I couldn't afford to feed myself. I was indebted to a lot of people because I was borrowing money, money to pay maybe my fees or buy books, stuff like that, or money to eat, so I was actually indebted and probably everybody was asking me, where's my money and all that. So you really get some low days where you feel like, what am I doing? Like, what's all this about? Do I have to do this? I can just go back home. Like, do I have to do this? So that day I was really so low that I sat down. So my sister, I have a sister, her name is Neka. She was also in college, but in a different college, also going through the similar situation. We were both determined to make it out. So I decided to write her a letter because there was someone that was coming from her school. He was visiting. And as I wrote her that letter, I was actually crying. I remember crying and writing and telling her that I think I've had enough. And I think I just want to go home, that I'm going to just let it all go, that I can't continue. I was just tired. It was just too much to bear with. You can't feed, you can't take care of yourself. Even though you desire to work hard, you don't have the tools. I don't have the books. I couldn't have, it was so difficult. So I wrote her this letter and I gave to this other recipient to take to my sister. And I remember, I think it was like on a Wednesday. But your good thing is that, like we said, your environment is important, the people around you. I'm thinking what probably happened is like later that day, I met a friend of mine. She probably bought me dinner. So I wasn't hungry anymore. She cheered me up. And maybe I went to, because I'm a Christian, I probably went to church. I got inspired and motivated to believe that, this thing, you just have to keep going. God in his way was going to help me. But on Saturday, my sister shows up. She's in my room and she's like literally in tears. Like, you're still here. I'm so happy. And I thought you'd gone. I saw your letter. And I'm like, oh, that's one of my low days. I was really low. I wasn't hoping you would read the letter. She's like, but why would I read the letter? So it's so important. And she did something really priceless for me. She didn't even have, but whatever she could glean, she came with some food stuff and some money. And, she shared with me, she encouraged me. She told me, you know what, we are almost there. You have to hang in there. We're almost there. You can't give up, And that experience, this is me, 20 years later, I recall this experience almost in tears. It was so emotional for me because it just showed me that the journey wasn't easy, but there are people, have the right people around you. They're like angels along the way. They would inspire you, motivate you, encourage you to go ahead. They don't necessarily have to give you what you think you need. Like I would have thought, someone should just pay my fees and give me money and this problem will be solved. But sometimes that's not what you need. You just need someone to be there rooting for you. And that can keep you going. That can keep you going.
This is so key right now, where everyone is so isolated right now.
Yeah.
And we're spending so much time in our thoughts and with our troubles. And sometimes it's like that tiny, like even if it's a short connection, a brief connection, like I believe in you, like I see your potential,
I
you're
see
going to
you.
grow. It makes a whole
It
world
makes
of
a huge
difference.
difference. Yeah, it
So
does.
like we're distant, but we need to make sure that we're not disconnected. And
I
it's
love
that
that.
connection that is, oh my God, that's everything right now, right? Like
That's
when people are
everything.
going through stuff, I know so many people right now that I'm trying to call on a regular basis saying, I know you're going through some stuff. And I also know, having gone through some stuff myself, that talking to someone is really the only way you'll ever get out of this. You're not going to like just by yourself,
Yeah.
pull yourself up and then try to figure everything.
There's
No,
power in
that's not how this
sharing.
works.
Because I
It's
think
not
also
how
in
it works.
sharing, you see the problems or the challenges slightly differently when you can talk to someone about it, or you're having that human interaction. It pulls you from the dark place because we tend to kind of our minds have a way of overblowing situations and making them look bigger than they are, or creating a whole whirlwind when there is none. And that's why sometimes it's just good to share and talk to people. So
Yeah.
I love what you said about, even though we're isolated, we should not be disconnected. It's so
Mm.
important, especially during this time.
Yeah. I mean, the mind is a very dangerous neighborhood. You certainly don't want to go out there alone. And having another person who can at least validate or like these stories that I'm like these messages, this record that I'm playing for myself, like how much of it really is true. Am I really in the situation that I think I'm in? Because what you think you are in is, like we were talking earlier about those people who like they live in this mindset of scarcity and they never get out of it. Like it's exactly that's the record, that's the
That's a
message that
record
we
that
keep
keeps
playing.
playing,
It's playing
that keeps running.
24/7. right? Your subconscious
You don't have
is
enough, grab as much as you can. You're going to be in big trouble. There's not enough resources. What are you going to do? The whole anxiety just weighs on you.
Okay, so love the story. I imagine a lot of these stories and many more are inside the book, Be Fearless.
Yeah.
So what's the best way to, if people want to know a little bit more, if they want to get in contact with you, or if they want to buy the book, where would you recommend that people go, Jane?
So you can find the book on Amazon. The book is on Amazon. We actually hit the bestseller list on like 7 categories on Amazon. So I'm so proud.
Oh, that's exciting.
So Amazon, all the Amazons is there, Also, you can check me out on my website, janeegerton.com. I'm everywhere on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, we're all on the social media as Jane Egerton-Idehen. So
Jane
yes.
Egerton. All right.
Yeah.
What I'll do is, if anybody doesn't know them, I'll include the links in the description of whatever the video is.
Yeah.
But once again, like, this is a really inspiring story. And if anything, I hope that it inspires a lot of others to look at, some of the challenges that they're going through right now and potentially see how they might start with what you described about the mindset, about thinking that you're somebody different. You're not your environment, and what people say about you isn't necessarily who you are. It's a really inspiring story, Jane.
Thank you so much, Ed. Thank you. And I had a great, it's just nice chatting with you. Like, I feel like we could go on and on and on. It's so easy to chat with you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I love the fact, because I think one of the biggest things I wanted with the book is that the book be read. I wanted people that needed it to read it, because for me, it was like a letter to my younger self. And I want that young self to read it.
This is the best kind of book. It's the kind of authentic book that really talks about this trial. There's this, like, I describe it as like the perfect, like, there's a strong desire. There's upsets along the way. There's transformation.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the authentic stories that are really a big part of the human journey, right? Like, we all have struggles.
And it's so important now, I think, especially with everything happening globally, that people get inspired to know that, we all have a journey, and it's okay that sometimes we have deviations and we could have, hurdles along the way. And this could be a hurdle for the world, but doesn't mean that we cannot go through it. Doesn't mean we cannot go through it.
So Jane, if I were to ask you a question, like, so now that the book is published, and now that, like, you're like, congratulations, by the way, on Amazon and kind of reaching the top of several categories. This is incredible. This is the thing I need to highlight, is that you're a best-selling author.
Yes, I'm like, wow, that's so cool.
Author on Amazon, right? Amazon author. Yeah. That's pretty incredible. Like, you need to be selling that for sure.
I should
what's the next steps for you? Where do you want to go from here, and what do you see as, like, what's the future for yourself, this message? What do you see yourself doing with Be Fearless, and where would the next steps be?
Frankly speaking, I would tell you what I thought I was going to be doing, because I'm learning, especially with what is happening now. Like, you can have big plans, but you should be also open to be flexible and pivot. So my desire really was to pass this on to the younger generation. I really wanted to take these messages to, to schools, young adults, undergraduates. My hope was to impact not just my continent, but globally, people that would have had a similar journey or having a similar journey. So I give them some kind of inspiration or hope. So I was geared to do that. I already had that planned out, but I had to plan that in a certain way, and now I can't seem to execute it, because I had all these speaking engagements I was going to do, and I was going to do career talks and have all these book reading sessions, because I really wanted to engage with this younger generation and really share with them. I didn't want you to just read the book. I wanted you to read the book and connect with the stories in the book. So I really wanted to, be part of that journey with them. But with the whole situation, I can't. I'm spending more time now doing podcasts. I'm learning to be flexible as well. That, we had to take all these tools, but we go online now. So I'm doing that a lot. But I have a huge passion for helping women and young girls, especially. And that's a lot to do with my experience, from some of the stories I've told you, just being told by your environment because of your gender. It's other stereotypes. It could be gender, it could be race, it could be sexual orientation, whatever religious beliefs that you are now excluded from something. That's something I passionately disallow. So I am really passionate about that. I do that using a platform I created called Women and Career. And there I really encourage women, to keep up with their career, encourage them with tools and resources that would help them. And I also motivate and, challenge young girls to start one or start thinking about having a career of theirs. So that's what I'm doing also on the nonprofit side. And these things give me joy. So I see myself taking it, global and, increasing the spread as we go along. And yeah, and, using my platform, because as a tech person, as a tech exec, I'm learning. That's one of the things I'm learning, to use my platform in a positive way. It's so easy to introduce yourself as a tech exec, but now I'm learning that it's a platform and it demands, I say that because I tell people, when people ask me, how's your job? I say it's more than a job now. It demands that because I sit at that table, I need to ensure that the voices of many others are heard and the door is open for them. So that's one of the things I'm so passionate about. I see that in the next level as I aspire into board positions in terms of my personal career, to ensure that I keep that platform also, keep it thriving, because it's so, so important. I don't want to be a one story, just how it is, always be the only single person. I don't think that's what I want. I want to know that because I came, there were many others. Because I walked into that room, because I sat at that table, there were many other opportunities for people like me or not like me to also do the same, rather than always being the only person, the only female, the only Black woman in some kind of situation at the top. Yeah. So that's how I see the next level.
Jane, I can't thank you enough for this, and you're the next pass that you're taking because of your passion are a real inspiration, and they're very closely aligned with some of the motivations I have for my own life. I'm gonna stop the video recording now. Stop.